What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Jury House podcast. I'm Noah Massey,
And I'm Jimmy L.
and we are here to talk about week 7 of Big Brother 3. This was, of course, every week has been the best week up until this
Until the
point,
next.
but
Mm.
until the next, right? But yeah, no, I think that this was a really interesting week here. Jimmy, what are your kind of initial thoughts going into week 7 here?
I will say so. My biggest thing was about Jason. I didn't know what he was going to do and how the mood of the house was going to be with him being the head of household. He did not disappoint, and so I'm happy. And I think it was and I even I really forgot until it just opening up my notebook like today that my predictions I had no
Right.
idea that was coming true. So, but
Uh, That's right. You did write down
hmm
some predictions. I
I
don't
did.
know if
I
you
did.
mentioned it, so I don't know if you want to tell us at the top here what those predictions were, or if you want to,
We can wait
uh,
because it was just
we
about
can
who was
wait.
going to be on the block or who I would have put
Okay.
on the block, given that it was Jason. So we can wait. We'll wait. We won't spoil it.
All right. Okay, well, then, without any further ado, let us jump into it. So, we ended last week with Chiara going out by,
Mhm.
I believe, a unanimous vote here. And
It was four
this
to one.
was, oh, what was it?
It was 4-1.
Oh, that's right, because
Mm.
Roddy,
Yeah, Danielle voted for
or,
Roddy.
yeah, yep,
Hmm
got it. So, this was kind of an interesting fallout, I thought, from just the previous weeks that we've seen. It really felt like the house guests were like really torn up
Yeah,
about this
yeah,
particular one. We just get like this entire segment of people
yeah,
truly acting like she has died and
yes, yes,
just being over the top, like bawling. And it is something where Amy, who was last week's HOH, is really having none of it. She's in the DR being like, everyone's acting like she's dying. I
yes.
have to pretend like I'm really bummed, and I'm not.
Maybe it's a Memphis thing. I don't know, but I definitely agree with Amy on this. I found myself cracking up at her because I mean it's the accent that doesn't help, right? The Southern accent, but she's just like oh my god, and then the whining, like it's just like oh my god, it's just like it's a game, people. And I was like, I will say it was just hilarious. But so when they first did the recap, they did a clip going back to Amy saying, that it was not about revenge. And
Right.
I just died because I was like, I forgot there was a whole thing. Like I forgot about all of that. And so I'm like, now she's gone and you're back to faking. So it's been funny to see her Amy segment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because she was pushing that all
Yeah.
week, and
Yeah.
it was like so transparent that, like,
Yeah.
of course it was about revenge,
Come
Amy.
on. Like, come on.
So I will say, I appreciated how she was acting in the diary room,
Yeah.
kind of because yeah, I did feel like people were laying it on a bit too thick, so it was interesting to essentially see her like be the real one and be like, yeah, no, this is the game. I'm glad she's gone. Got her out of here. Uh, but I do think like the idea that anyone expected her to be like bummed that Kiara's out of the house when she was so obviously the target,
Yeah.
and that she's like having to put up this front. It's like
Like,
I don't think so. I
mm,
I I don't think anyone's buying that you're the least bit upset about
I
this outcome. So
agree. I don't think anybody. I don't think anybody did.
yeah. So, we get a DR from Jason. He says, she brought so much to this house, so much life, so much energy. And I thought that, Jason continues to be just this very nice guy. He's a guy that we really haven't seen say anything bad about anybody in the diary room.
True. True.
So, I think that that is kind of an interesting he's not playing the social game. He's just a very good social player and, he's got to at least be a little bit conscious of making sure that he's kind of minding his P's and Q's when he's doing these confessionals.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's doing. I'm still rooting for him because
Yeah.
I really, I definitely think he's playing the game closer to him, and being more authentic than it just so happens to be that he is a nice guy in the process, and so I think it's great to see on screen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So then we get Lisa in the DR. She's also a little bit upset. She's very upset that Chiara kind of looked at her as she was leaving the house and said, "Why didn't you
Why
vote
didn't you
for
vote?
me?"
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, like you of course she didn't vote for you to stay because you didn't vote for her to stay when she was on the block. Like,
Like, come. I don't know what Kiara was thinking. I think honestly, I really believe that Kiara thought she probably had a better sense of what was happening in the house. Like that she thought that her social game was much stronger. And I'm just like, you like nothing about you is real within this house. Like nothing. But you want to hold her accountable for that? Like, girl, your time is up. Like stuff like that should not be said. Like I think that's just poor sportsmanship. You know.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that one of the things that was annoying me last week about their kind of making up and everything is, that's not something that you can just let bygones be bygones
Mm,
because, like, Lisa was on the block and you voting for her to leave,
leave. Hmm.
like,
And then
that
lied
would have
about
been
it.
the end of it,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
do think that that was definitely hypocritical from Kiara, and, is, like you said, a wake-up call that her social game just wasn't as good as she thought. She didn't have who she thought she had. That's what's kind of interesting is then we kind of as a contrast to the Lisa reaction, we get Danielle who is really broken up
Which I don't know
about it.
why. I'm sorry about Kiara leaving, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know why. What the hell? Like that shocked me. That shocked me. Like if it was Jason, I could understand Danielle being devastated. But Kiara, like what the hell? Like what was like that was yeah, that was shocking to me. That was shocking to me. And I initially thought it was fake. But then I was like, oh no, she's actually serious about this.
Yeah, I am starting to understand a little bit more about Danielle where,
Okay.
I came into this rewatch thinking to myself that Danielle was like this really cold, like very strategic minded human being that
Mm-hmm.
like didn't care about anybody else and was just there to play the game. And I think what we're seeing from her is that there is still that human element and that, if she does let herself get a little bit close to people, then when she inevitably has to vote them out, then it is something that is a quite emotional experience for her. And I think, I mean, this isn't I don't think this is the first time that she's had like an emotional
Mm.
reaction to voting someone out of the house. I could be wrong about that, but um, I do feel like I've seen more emotions and connection that she has with other people than I originally thought going into this rewatch.
Well, I guess I don't, and I am normally the optimistic one.
Mm,
Normally, but and maybe it's because it's my first time watching it.
mhm,
But I don't know. I see her to be so calculated. Like I
right.
see her to be so calculated and like wow. Okay. 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 I'm gonna try to give her a break. I'm gonna try to be on the lookout for some of the positive things from Danielle. Let's
Okay,
see. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
that's all you can do, right? um, yeah, so yeah, we get Danielle very broken up there, saying she's gonna miss Chiara a lot. We go
Mhm.
back to Jason in the diary room, who tells us that he had promised to give Chiara a kiss if she got evicted at some point,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I thought that was another thing that I had kind of misremembered from the first time that I watched it. Like I knew that he gave her a kiss,
Mhm.
but like she just I think gives him a small little like peck on the cheek or
Uh-huh.
something, and then
Uh-huh.
he's like, "No, give me a real kiss."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny for him.
Yeah, because he's, the good virgin boy, so, whatever's going on there. And so that was sweet. That was very, because obviously he has created this bond with her. So, yeah, that
Right.
was sweet.
Yeah. Um so, then of course we get Roddy,
Yeah.
who is saying he's gonna miss her a lot. She made the hours go by. Says that he wanted to follow her right out the door, and that's followed up by Amy saying that, I guess I'm just the Wicked Witch of the South.
Yes. Because, I mean, come on. It is a game,
Mhm.
okay? It is a game. Like, y'all stop. I don't understand what was so special about Kiara. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't really get it either. I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't really remember how the reaction was when Amy left, but
Mm.
it kind of a similar thing of, oh, this is just like a young girl that maybe is a little too much sometimes, but we all have like a soft spot for her, even
Mm.
similar to Josh. So I can kind of see it, but yeah, it
You
is.
are so optimistic today. I don't know what you're drinking. What's in your water today? I'm shocked.
I mean, it was very annoying to watch. Like I don't like these. I never like it when you voted this person out. Like you killed their dream. Like
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason to be having this kind of display here. But I don't. I guess I am looking at it optimistically, but
Mm-hmm.
I assure you, out of the two of us, I am not the optimistic one. So this
Got
is a
it.
new accusation, but I don't know how I feel about it. But so it's something that is kind of um, something that really touches Roddy, even though he has lost Chiara, is that she leaves her childhood blanket
Yes.
for
Yes.
him, and this is something that really like that. These are genuine tears.
Mm-hmm.
I think this
I
this is
agree.
something that definitely touches him. So it was interesting to see him being that vulnerable.
Very, very. But then he he told somebody to get it out of his bag or something, right? Like I can't remember how all of that played out.
I think so. The way it was edited was weird because initially I thought it was Jason that was like saying, "Oh, she left something for you,
Mm,
Roddy," and then he goes to Roddy's bag, but no, Jason um, goes to the bag because Roddy says, "Yeah, she left something for me. Like, check it out, guys."
mm,
And so then they go into his bag, and then Jason pulls out the blanket, and
mm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because it definitely was. It was sweet. It was a sweet thing to watch. I kind of I disliked that it happened in front of the entire house. It almost seemed like it was staged, and so I didn't like that piece. But I also understand you guys are this little family. You're in this house together, So I get why this would be a big gesture. But
yeah,
it was definitely nice to see. It was
yeah.
nice to see.
I didn't like that they called it a whoopee. They
Is
kept
that what it was
saying,
called?
yeah, he was like, she left me her whoopee. And I'm like,
Oh.
no, it's a
Oh,
blanket.
it's a
It's
yeah.
it's a
I,
blanket,
and I just said security blanket. I thought
right?
I it's just wow. Yeah, I don't remember the name. I missed that
Yeah.
detail.
It yeah, it's that's not the only time that that word is used in Big Brother, which is why it
Oh,
rang in my head a little bit there.
oh, I
So
only know it from the old game show. The wedding, Newlyweds was the name of the game
uh,
show. Yeah, 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 yeah. So that's the only time I've ever heard that term. So
yeah, I didn't even know that that was like a slang term for blanket, but
I didn't either.
who knew?
Yeah.
That's 2002 for you. So, um, yeah. So we get a little bit more context from Danielle in the DR, where she is broken up about having to evict Chiara, and the thing that it seems is really getting to her is the fact that she had Roddy by the balls. She could have easily changed that vote, but she had compassion for Amy, and so she decided to go with what Amy wanted. And but that is something that she's thinking about going into this next HOH competition, where she's like, I have to keep my mind on the game. I have to do what I have to do. I don't have to like it, but I'm going to do what I need to do to survive in this game.
So I actually said during this DR, I remember thinking like Danielle is letting it slip, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about her. Like she's, I see her as this mastermind, and being this very strategic player. And so to see this vulnerable pieces of her, I am struggling to see whether or not it's fake or real. And so again, this was literally one of those moments, and I was just like, okay, she's letting it slip. Like she's letting it slip a little bit here. Like, who is she really behind all of this facade? So this is again was one of those moments. So
Yeah, I think, it could be a combination of things where it's one, there's the frustration of wanting to have gotten Roddy out last week. I do think that, there's definitely that game focus that she has, and so I do think there's some frustration there. But I do think that, a big component of these types of games is, you can be at home watching these games and thinking like, oh, this is what I would do, and these are the
mm-hmm.
moves that I would make, and why did they make this certain move? And then you go and you play the game, and it just kind of hits you differently because you're like, oh, right, these are
Real people. Mm-hmm.
real people.
Yeah.
And Danielle, so I will say, I know for a fact that she did not watch Big Brother 2 prior to
Oh,
coming into the house. So
okay.
she was a huge Survivor fan, but she had not seen the first
Oh,
two seasons
wow.
of Big Brother. So, there is that aspect of just coming in completely fresh and, you know, not realizing, like I said, what the dynamic is going to be when you're actually in this environment playing this game.
Makes sense. Wow. Wow. I didn't know that.
We get a conversation between Danielle and Lisa in the map room, and this is kind of during that whole funeral procession type
Mm-hmm.
thing
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
Lisa is telling Danielle that she's so mad at herself, and she says she doesn't want the game to turn her into a bad
Mm-hmm.
person. And I thought that that's kind of indicative of how I feel this entire season is kind of going, where it
Oh.
seems like it 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 seems like rather than seeing it as a game, people are seeing it as, well, if I make this certain type of move, if I lie to somebody, then I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
If I try to get someone out by using trickery or something of that matter, that somehow that's tied into your character as a person, when nowadays I feel like that's not really the case. Like, people, things that happen in the game are still personal, but I still feel like you can watch a season of Big Brother and watch someone like lie and backstab, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not thinking, oh, like they're a terrible person. You're like, no, this is who they are in the game, but that's
Yeah.
not indicative of who they are outside. So it's just kind of interesting to see that there's this real, like, moral dilemma that a lot of these players are having.
I will say, and I get it. That it's an internal conflict. Conflict. I kind of get it, and I'm really I guess I don't know. I'm not as surprised by it, and maybe because I've seen some of the later seasons, and the first thing honestly that comes to mind is Sari on Trader,
Oh,
and there was a couple of things that happened with her and a few of the people that were there on the show, and they still, even during the reunion, they could not get over what she did during the game.
okay.
And so it was, so I don't know. And my mindset is there. And so seeing this from people doesn't really surprise me. The only one that surprised me from was Danielle, but that's only because I really don't know where she is. Like everybody else, I feel like I kind of have a small insight as to who they are and possibly who they are outside of the game. And I can kind of see, those moves and going back and forth within the house versus who they are outside. But with Danielle, I feel like she has this guard up,
Right.
and I don't know who she is. And then you mix that in with all of the other strategic things she's doing, and so again, she's about the biggest surprise for me when it comes down to that inner conflict. So I don't know. I don't know. That's my tangent for this episode.
Okay. Well, we have got a bit to go,
Okay, yeah, you're
so
right. You're right. You're right.
it's
You're right.
let's not call it just yet.
Okay. Good point. Good point. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But back to Danielle and
Yeah.
Lisa in this conversation. I know Lisa's having this conflict, but she was getting advice from Danielle.
Yeah.
And what I remember is I'm like her listening to Danielle versus what she felt she should do in
Right.
this moment. And so that, again, back to Danielle being the mastermind, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. She's having influence on Lisa, and Lisa kind of can tell, and she's trying to resist, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not going too well for her right now. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see if she can break from the powers of Danielle Reyes here. So then we get a DR from Marcellus, who is kind of like it's a good thing that Chiara's gone. You plot against people, you manipulate situations to get what you want, and then you sit around and cry about it. And
Yeah.
well, I guess in this case he's talking about Lisa.
Yeah.
He is saying like, just own what it is that you are doing here. And he tells Lisa and Danielle like she did all of us dirty. So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely okay that we have sent her out the door because she would have come for one of us. And so 4 down plus one friend and
Yes.
5 to go.
Her damn countdown. Okay.
So that leads us into the HOH competition, which is won by one Mr. Jason Guy. And Danielle is mostly hiding her excitement. She I feel was getting a little giddy there, but she kind of holds back a little bit. Um so
I do want to go back to
yeah,
one thing. I remember like right during all of this, everyone was in the feeling that they were safe.
right.
Do you remember that? Like everybody thought that they were safe. And so I just want to say that for me kind of proves like who Jason is and his social game. Like to be able to be head of household and everybody in the house thinks that they're safe. Like, I mean, the delusion is just at an all time high.
Yeah.
All time
That
high.
yeah, there's a funny moment in Big Brother 15, which is a fairly controversial season, but there is a player on that season that has. He is not as nice as Jason, but he has a similar social game. Like he has a very active social game on the more like strategic side of trying to be social. And there is a point in the season where he wins the head of household competition, and there's just this like compilation of people in the diary room saying like just how much they trust him and how
Mm,
much they feel like they are going to be safe. And so that kind of is a little bit reminiscent of what we have here. And like you said, it's a good display of just how good Jason's social game is for him to
mhm.
have these many people feeling like they're safe. I do think that that is a very tough spot to be in when you're the most liked person in the house and you
Uh-huh.
win power.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
But at least right now it seems to be working for him. Yeah, so I think that what we get from Jason is that he says the only person that I have 100% confidence in is Danielle, and that means that other than Danielle, no one is safe in this house. And there is a fun little editing moment that as he's saying that, it freeze frames on him kind of walking in slow motion, and he's got this just very like serious look on his face that I thought was very funny that they did for a guy like Jason. That was really cool because that's like the complete opposite of who he is. So Danielle says in the diary room that they have to take a look at what groups are coming after them. Jason says in the DR that Danielle has gone out of her way to protect him, and he needs to do the same for her, even if it means playing dirty, which is a fun little tease of things to come there. Danielle asks Jason if he knows what he's going to do, and she tells him that before Chiara left, she had spoken with Danielle and Lisa and said, don't rely on Jason because he's weak. And she says that if that's how Chiara felt, she can only imagine that it is possible that Roddy feels the same. And so I thought that I didn't know how to take that. I mean, we do see that it's true. Like Chiara definitely said that, but I
Mm-hmm.
did kind of wonder if that is Danielle like trying to manipulate Jason a little bit.
You know that
One
it
hundred,
is.
100.
It is, and you know it.
Yeah,
So if I was Jason,
yeah,
I would question, why are you bringing this to me now? Why
now
didn't you bring it to me when you first heard it?
heard it.
Like that
Yeah,
for me, that would be the first little like red flag. And so
yeah,
I'm questioning your motives 100% at this point. 100%. Like I really dislike she said it. I literally wrote that, like, why even say anything right now? Like, it's the first day. If you ask him anything, what is it that who you're thinking? Like, what are you thinking? Like, have that conversation with him, but don't. The girl is gone. Like, like her name should not come up in this conversation right now. You know you're safe, and you're talking to the head of household. Like, so bringing up somebody else's name is, I think, was just stupid. So sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Well, well, I thought that that was interesting because it's either later in this episode or later in another episode where Jason makes a comment about how when he's talking to other people, he feels like they're manipulating him, and that
He did
Danielle's the
say that.
only one that
That
he
does it.
doesn't feel like is trying to manipulate
So
him.
I wrote when we get there, I wrote it down, and I was just like,
Okay.
how can he not see this? How can he not see this? But he said it. Yeah, he said it. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so Jason says in the DR, if he has to be the bad guy, I'll put Roddy up. He says the gloves are off.
Mm,
He's ready to do what he's got to do. So then we get another segment about Danielle where Jason starts off by talking about how there's an awful lot of stress in the house and that it's important in those times to find something to laugh about and that Danielle does a really good job of that. And so I that then we get, more of her impressions, more of
mm.
her dancing there and you know, it's a fluff segment, but what I do
Right.
like about it is that I feel like there's a lot of times where we have these types of segments and I feel like it shows you a little bit more about these people and like why the other house guests really like gravitate
Mm.
towards these
Mm-hmm.
specific types of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm in there with Danielle and she's like, dancing or doing all these impressions, I'm gonna find it funny. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is
You have no entertainment. She's it for an so yeah.
so I do feel like there's a little bit of value in that there's a segment coming up a little bit later that is another one of these fluff segments that I don't
Uh,
feel
mm,
accurately
mm,
tells me anything else about this specific person.
okay.
Um, but we will talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
Then then we get a segment that is about Jason and how
Yeah.
he kind of is when he is trying to have these strategy conversations and when he's trying to lie to people and how it doesn't really work out that well. And so I similarly to the Danielle segment, I thought that that was something that gave us a little bit of insight into how he kind of functions in the game.
Same. I actually enjoyed this segment with Jason and about his stutter, so that one I liked.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Jason's such an endearing person that I think even if he's like not telling you the truth or he's lying, it's just like, oh,
Like,
Jason, like
like,
you're trying, buddy.
like you're trying. Like, okay, okay, I'm gonna forgive you. Okay, like, yeah, gotta love Jason.
You know who I don't love though is Amy. And I don't love this next segment where
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
is about Amy's drinking habits and how
Mm-hmm.
the old Amy is coming back. And yeah, I feel like this doesn't tell me anything that I didn't already know about her. I don't think it tells me why people don't like her, so
Yes,
there's added value there, I guess. But it just made me sad to watch, like
I, I would agree.
because it really comes off like she's got a bit of a drinking problem, at
Mm-hmm.
least in this
Segment.
particular era of her life, and so it was just it's not fun to see someone on a downturn there.
No, I mean, especially if everyone else around you is talking about hiding alcohol or like it's just yeah that is yeah that should be a wake up call for you. Like you think it's funny and but no, come on, come on, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We had talked a couple episodes ago about like when when she got evicted, and we thought that that was it. She was going home, and she was going to have the time to unwind. The bad thing is that she went to Mexico instead, right?
Yes.
She went on a little vacation where she was probably drinking up those
Drinking. She
margaritas and
was. She said it. Down in Margaritaville is what she said. So,
having the time of her life. So I don't
mhm.
think there was much time for reflection. And you know,
Yeah, and then she didn't see this as a playback. Now, I would
right?
hope that you get home and you see these things as a playback. It would be a wake up call for you. So,
Yeah,
fingers crossed for her.
absolutely. Someone else that I think might be a little bit embarrassed when they go back and watch the tapes is Gerry, who
Oh.
basically spends an entire segment just thirsting for Marcellus. And I mean, hey, I like the fact that this is an old straight white guy that's clearly comfortable in his sexuality. That's
That's what he
that's
said.
good.
Hmm.
Very, very positive thing. But yeah, Marcellus was not feeling this at all.
At all. I think he called it creepy. It was definitely entertaining to watch the way they kind of put all these things together. And I will say that speaking from personal experience, straight people are like some of the weirdest people that I know. And I'm just like, it is just the craziest thing. It is the craziest thing. But I do understand where Marcellus is coming from. Because it's different. And I even think Gerry said that maybe Marcellus is just not used to how heterosexual people are, or men that are comfortable in their
Right.
sexuality. And so I think he said that. And so I get it, but it can be a little creepy. Like some things just weird. So
Yeah,
sorry, Gerry.
it feels like he's probably overcompensating a little bit. It's 2002, so he's trying to I think show like, hey, I'm cool with you. We're good,
Mm-hmm.
but it just
Mm-hmm.
uh comes off very weird.
Yes.
I so um, but I did like his comment of whether or not Marcellus wants an old white sugar daddy. I
Oh, he did. Oh God, I forgot that. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I forgot that.
So I also one thing that I should mention is that in Big Brother 2, there is an older white guy who befriends a younger gay guy in the house, a younger white gay guy in the house, and that was like a storyline throughout Big Brother 2. And in that case, the older white guy was like very homophobic, and he had to like
Mm.
come and really start to see this younger gay guy as a human being. And
Mm-hmm.
so I do kind of wonder if that's production trying to kind of like, hey, this worked the first time, let's do something else here. And maybe that is why there's been a lot of content on the show about Gerry and Marcellus and their relationship, and why it's not always clear whether like Marcellus likes him or not. Again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Marcellus is so up and down with his feelings anyway. But I do wonder if the show is trying to push the same kind of storyline, and just not hitting the mark there.
Well, I mean, they're making us talk about it, and
That's true.
it's been interesting because I didn't even know all of that was going on, so I didn't see it as a viewer, and so for them to do this whole segment, it's obviously a thing.
Obviously, yeah. So then Jason and Danielle talk in the HOH room, and Jason asks Danielle what she thinks he should do. She says, Roddy. Roddy's been saying that he doesn't trust you because of the Eric vote, and we get a few other conversations, like a montage of Lisa, Gerry, and Marcellus basically corroborating that story, and so it seems like he is kind of primed to go after Roddy there, but then he talks to him, and Roddy denies everything, even though Jason is really pushing him on it. And he tells Jason that, of course, people are going to make it sound like Roddy betrayed him because they don't want to go on the block. And Jason is then told by Roddy, like, I've never lied to you. I've never done anything to you. I've never been anything but nice and a friend to you. And so Jason tells Roddy that he feels like Roddy is using his emotions against him. And so, what did you take from this conversation?
I seriously wrote down that he was being a bully. So, like, we saw a different side of Roddy, and well, not even a different side, but we've talked about this in regards to Roddy. Because one moment you're just like you're rooting for him, you like him, and then the next moment you're just like, dude, now what you just said was kind of shady. Like that was kind of weird. Like you went a little too far with that. Like you're making me question, like the shit he did with Marcellus in the hot tub, or even what he did with Chiara and all of that. So I'm like, you're trying to put this charm back on to Jason, obviously because he's the head of household this week. Again, play the game. I get it. I 100% get that. I understand it. But the way he went about it, I felt like he was truly bullying Jason. Like I'm going to use this I'm older, this big brother thing on you, and like you need to basically listen to yourself or listen to me, like what do you think would have happened, like you're the head of household. And so I think again he was a bully to me. I did not like this side of Roddy at all.
Yeah, I didn't care for it either. I can't speak to a specific example, but it's like it's almost like a teacher like scolding like the quiet kid in class, where you're trying to get some information, and so you go to the kid that if you just press the right buttons, if you just make them feel like, oh, like I've done something wrong, I've disappointed you, that they're kind of gonna fold and give you what you want. And that is definitely what we see here. I do like that Jason kind of pushes back on him a little bit, but yeah, it's just Roddy is very good at that emotional manipulation stuff, and it's one of those things where, like, if I was just hanging out with Roddy and we were just like talking for a couple of hours, I would probably really like the guy. I would probably really feel like he is listening to me and, like cares about what I have to say.
Yeah.
But I think he knows that if he kind of reels you in that way, then he can play this more kind of emotional angle, and so it's something that it's interesting to watch. He's kind of he's kind of a villain, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
really in this season, and it's more kind of a subtle kind of villainy that we're seeing here. He really is the devil.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Danielle, I don't know what if I
Right?
hear her
He's
say that, she said this so many times. I'm just like, stop, girl. Like,
he's he I'm surprised he didn't try to tempt Jason with the apple. Like
well,
so
I do agree with you. I'm glad Jason sees it, and he's not oblivious.
right. So this conversation really kind of messes with Jason, and we get this long deliberation of him just in the HOH room. He's got the keys, and first he's in the diary room, just like cradling
Yeah.
himself and really going through it. He doesn't know what he's gonna do, and then he's deliberating in the HOH room, and it's just it. You can tell it really weighed on him, and so when we get to the nomination ceremony, I forget like what his opening words were, but we ultimately see that the result is that he leaves Roddy off the block, and Gerry and Amy are put up as our two nominees here. He tells Gerry, "Your name's been thrown around a lot. A lot of people think you're a threat." And then with Amy, we kind of know that this is part of the Operation Revolving Door
Revolving.
strategy, so there's not too many surprises there. But what do you think of his decision to ultimately keep Roddy off of the block, and what do you think about the people that he decides to nominate?
So initially, I think my goodness prediction was
Yep.
Roddy and Amy. And so he
Okay.
was very, very close to putting, I believe, those two up. And I remember hearing something about those names. I think he was talking to Gerry and he was specifically saying Roddy and Amy. So again, I was like, oh my gosh, whoo. But anyway, from a Jason's perspective, I don't know. I think it was very silly to put up Gerry and Amy. I think that he should have gone with Roddy. I really think he should have gone with Roddy. Um, and if not Danielle, you know, and if not Danielle. So I just, yeah, because Amy is not a threat. She's just left the house and came back. No
Right.
one is going to agree with her for her to win the competition. So
Right.
even if you took her to the final two, or even the final three, no one is voting for Amy for that very reason. And so she's really not a threat. Gerry, okay, I don't necessarily know. Maybe it's like a toss up. But I'm like, those other two between Roddy and Danielle, like, you know who they are, you know their social game, you know your connection with them. So it's not really clicking to me as to this combo from a Jason's perspective.
Yeah. I was disappointed in this result here.
Mm,
I think that you're kind of on the money there. That with Roddy at the very least, like you said, his social game, you know what he's capable of, and this is the time to get him. Like I I I don't think there's a better time to try to do this, and you know his kind of reasoning is that if I go after Gerry, then I'm going with the safe move, and that puts me in a position to make the final five. And I can see the idea of being a player like Jason that has won your first HOH, and you just want to make the safe move, but I think there's too many variables and you're too far in the game that I don't think a move like that is, that's not the time to be playing safe here. And I think with the support of the house, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine to go after Roddy. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't I don't necessarily know how you keep his vote if you make it to final two, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you have to worry about just getting to the end instead of what votes you're going to have if you make it there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jason seems to know. Like I've given Roddy the game. I screwed up here, and Danielle is none too pleased about this decision,
She is
and
not happy at all.
not at all.
Yeah, not at all.
So we open episode 22 with Lisa commending Jason for following his heart rather than what other people want, and Jason gives us a little more context that he was following a deal he made with Chiara and Roddy before Chiara left. She had told him to look out for Roddy, and Roddy said he'd protect him if he ever got HOH again. So that does call into question whether or not he was like ever seriously considering
True.
putting Roddy up,
Mm-hmm.
or if he's just using that as kind of the excuse for not making a big move here. It does seem like from the live feeds he was going back and forth, but I do think that he had this deal kind of in the back of his mind that he
Yeah.
was like, oh, gotta stick to it. So
Yeah, I agree because what we hear from this episode and the next one, he keeps repeating that, and
yeah,
he's quite adamant about that, and I well we'll get there, but because I was under the same impression that we find out later on, but I was just like, when did he protect you? Like
right,
where did this come from? Like what's happening here?
right.
So yeah, I yeah. But anyway, we keep hearing Jason say this,
Yeah.
and so I agree with you. It then did not become a surprise to me.
So then we get the conversation between Jason and Danielle,
Mm-hmm.
and Jason tells Danielle that if you put up Roddy and left Gerry off the block, he might be gone next week. So he thinks that, Gerry could be the one to win an HOH and be the only one to target him. And he reassures Danielle that if he hears anything about Roddy coming after Danielle, he'll win the veto and he will put him up. It's too late at that point, I think, because then what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Like,
Like, great, you win the veto, and then you put him up, and now he's pissed at you because he feels like this was the plan all along. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
so, but that is the plan he's going with right now if he needs to. We get Marcellus saying in DR that he thinks this decision was weak and that it just
Mm-hmm.
shows that Jason's incapable of making the tough decisions. You know,
So rude.
I, I yeah, but I do kind of agree with it.
Oh.
Like I don't think like, oh, he's weak, but I
Okay.
do
Okay. Okay.
I do think that I am not surprised, like, because Jason's archetype, like the type of player that he is, I first time I watched the show or this season, I came into it with the expectation that he wasn't going to be able to play this like big cutthroat game,
Mm-hmm.
and then we saw certain like inklings of, okay, maybe he is capable, and then when he won this HOH and made this decision, that kind of put me back in the camp of, like, this is what I would expect from a player like him, someone that isn't necessarily able to pull the trigger, is able to talk about what he needs to do without actually being able to do it. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
so we get a conversation between Lisa and Amy. Amy is not worried that she's on the block.
Oh my god, this girl is something serious. She went crazy in this DR about Gerry. And just like you said, she was not worried and she felt like she's gonna stay and Jerry's gonna go. But when she said that the state of California needs their teacher, I was like, come on, like Amy, come on, come on. So she's just like, he needs to go anyway. Like, let's put him back out there in the real world.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, you've already been ousted once. Like, yeah, I would worry a little bit.
I would too. I would too. I would too.
But
Oh, man.
she has premonitions, and she knew the week that she was up against Lori that Lori was going to be the one to go, and
Oh.
she just knew when she was up against Marcellus that was her time.
Mm,
So
mm,
you know,
mm, mm.
we will see.
We will see.
So we get a conversation between Danielle and Lisa in the map room, and Lisa says that Roddy is dangerous, and they talk about how Jason said that Roddy wouldn't go after him, but Danielle and Lisa talk about how Roddy gets other people to do his dirty work for him
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and you know, which I think we've seen.
Yeah.
We've seen him plant the seeds and kind of dictate the type of people that should be going out of this game, and so I think they definitely have a reason to be concerned there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Gerry seems to kind of echo that statement in the DR. He says, I'm somewhat mistrustful of Roddy. It's hard to put my finger on exactly why. Maybe because he's intelligent and he's smart enough to know how to manipulate. And at the moment, he probably got the upper hand with Jason. And, yeah, this is a guy that's been on the block twice, and there's been talk of voting him out, and it just has not happened yet. So clearly, this guy has pull, and people are starting to recognize that. So then we get a little activity for the house guests where they get to paint lawn gnomes,
Mm.
and so they're all very excited to get to do that and have a little activity there. And yeah, I mean, there was
That
nothing
nothing.
that
Yeah.
stood out to me other than Amy gets some more wine,
I was hoping you were going to bring that up, but yeah, because her
which
gnome
is
or something had the one. This is ridiculous.
exactly what she needed. And so they paint their gnomes, and
Mm,
people eventually start to disperse, leaving Jason, Marcellus, and Danielle left
mm,
to talk game. Marcellus asks Danielle if Gerry has put the bite on her yet. She says no, and then she's like, hey, you might want to keep it down a little bit because
he's right.
Jerry's right behind them
Mm,
in the house. And, you know, but Jason says that he wants to win the veto. And so that is kind of what the plan is. This has nothing to do with game, but I just thought about when Danielle made the comment of, oh, Gerry is like right behind you. Like it made me think about the dynamics of like the geography of the house and like how small it is and how like yeah, if you're outside, like it's very easy for people to hear you because it's
mm.
just like there's just some windows and then
Ye-
there's like a door and it's not like the sliding glass door.
Yeah,
Um
but
so I thought that was interesting.
I would assume that that would have been the case because again, because it's some of this small sound studio, or this little set. So yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm still shocked at the DRs and the head of household's room. Like I'm like, did you just put extra padding in it or something? I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this is not even the ugliest diary room that we get. So stay tuned. So before we get to the veto, we get a segment about how hot Marcellus is. That's how I took it. I don't know if that's how you took it.
It is not. It is not.
Okay.
I thought it was just him being vain and everybody
Oh,
calling him out on being vain. But okay, we'll
okay.
go with yours. It sounds better.
Well, I guess from his perspective,
Yeah.
how he feels that. I mean, it's a good looking dude, so
Mm.
good for him. Something's working there,
Way to go, Marcellus.
right?
Yeah. And his fashion advice. Like this is so weird. But it was again another fluff piece, as you said.
Right. Um, so that leads us into the POV competition. It's called Gnome Drop, and so
Mm.
the gnomes are strung up on a crossbar with 3 lines leading to each. Each line corresponds to the answer of a multiple choice question about the house guests. Only the correct answer line is attached to the gnome, and if that line is cut, the gnome will come crashing down to the ground. If your gnome is dropped, you're out of the running for the POV. So interesting kind of setup here.
Yes.
Nothing really to write home about other than the fact that Marcellus is very much like,
Dramatic.
yeah, he's very much scared that his gnome is gonna
Gonna break
bite the
and
dust. So,
yeah, yeah. He is so
but he gets
dramatic.
lucky.
He did. He did. He did. His
Very
gnome
lucky.
dropped and it did not shatter. So yeah. But he is so. I mean, he is just so dramatic. It's just.
So dramatic, indeed. Um, so Jason ends up winning the POV. So he's got all the power this week. And in the diary room, Gerry says that he wants to talk to Jason about Jason vetoing Amy and having Gerry go up against Roddy. He says that this will put the two biggest strategists in the house up against each other. And, I mean, it's not a bad pitch, I don't think. It's kind of a situation where you leave it up then to the house guests to decide which side they're gonna fall onto. But in the diary room, Jason is kind of mulling over what his decision is gonna be. He's like, I got a couple more days to think, and so if Roddy does something, then that's a situation where I can feel okay about putting him up on the block. So this leads us into our America's Choice segment, where Danielle starts off by talking to Lisa and Roddy about missing her family and feeling alone in the house. And so the America's Choice for the week is: the house guests miss their family. Which of the house guests would you like to see receive a video message from home? And we get Roddy and Gerry saying that they want Danielle to win. It really feels like the edit is pushing for a Danielle win there. And
Because it came out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah,
Other than the sex stuff, you hadn't really talked about your husband. And so now, I was really kind of confused initially, but I'm with you. Like when we start to see this stuff, like okay, this is the setup. Got it.
right. It was kind of a leading a segment there. So we just basically get a teaser there, and then Roddy and Amy have a conversation where first in the DR, Amy, Lisa, and Marcellus are talking about how persuasive Roddy is and how he just gets you to do whatever he wants. And then Lisa says that this is not how things should be going. And so Roddy tells Amy that Danielle is terrified of him. And this is where we get Danielle in the DR calling him the devil. She says he can smile, he can talk, he's good looking. You're giving up your firstborn when this man leaves the room and you don't know why. And I mean, she's not wrong.
She's not.
She's not
She's not.
wrong.
He's again. I use the word charming. He is a very charming character person,
Hmm.
and so I'm not mad at him. Like I'm not frustrated or angry with him. Like I got it. Other than the bullying that he did with Jason. But yeah, I can see why she would call him the devil. I can see it. I wouldn't use those terms, but I can see it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's never been a big deal to me that she calls him the devil, because,
Really?
like, I mean, I get that. I get how much she's calling him the devil.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
it maybe gets to a point where it's like, okay, are you like, do you like me? Do you not like me? Like, I do see that point. I just like, if I'm playing a game with someone and they're being super like sneaky or a charmer, yeah, I'm gonna call them like, oh, you're the devil, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
gonna do some trash talk there. And the guy's an atheist. Like,
Oh, is he?
yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't
he's an atheist.
know.
So like, who cares?
Wow.
But
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
We get a segment about Amy. I didn't write down any notes other than that.
Oh,
This is just something else that doesn't really
it
tell
does
me
because
anything.
well, is this one she had with Lisa? The
It
conversation with
it,
Lisa?
it was something about relationships, I think.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
must have been with
Yeah.
Lisa.
It was so like because that was for me the reason why it was slightly disturbing is because you spent this segment and this time talking about her alcohol and drinking. And
Right,
so you kind of like, I don't like her. And then you try to humanize her by saying,
right.
oh, I'm 24 years old and I've never, like, dating for me is difficult. And so, and you want to feel for this character. And even the little sad music that they had playing, like, it was ridiculous how you did this about her. So it was, again, a waste of time. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of time.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. You can't it's like what they've done with Jerry in the past, where it's like, you can't have a segment that's piling on somebody and then in the next one like try to humanize them, because you've
Mm-hmm.
already told the audience like what to think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hmm so yeah, but yeah, it's just, yeah, it's doing too much. So then we get our America's Choice. Of course, Danielle gets it. Yay. She
Mm-hmm.
gets she gets her video from home, and
Mm.
it's fine.
I'm so over her in this
Okay.
damn video. I honestly wrote that. I was like, can we just not? I was like, can we just not? Like yeah, I'm over her. I am. I am. Like, I don't think she was missing her family. I don't. Not that I don't see her as human. Let me not say that piece. It's not that far. But I don't think she's that emotionally connected to her family. Like I just don't. I don't buy that. I just don't. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is so mean to say. Oh, that is so mean to say. But I'm sorry. It's the truth. It's how I feel.
So you think she's playing it up for the edit, for the house guests, like,
I think either editing is really screwing her over, which is we've seen it, and so that is a high possibility, and they're just not wanting to show more of those vulnerable moments. But I think that she's playing it up for the camera, like I not even the camera, like for the game, because I truly think she came into this house with a beeline toward the money,
right,
and I personally feel, don't know her whatsoever. I
right.
personally feel that that is very similar to who she possibly is outside of this house. That's how I personally feel. And I think that we play the game at work, we play the game in corporate life, we do those things to get this end goal. which oftentimes means stepping on those that are closest to you, ignoring spending time with those that are closest to you, you know. And so I that's just what I see. That's just what I see. And I know there's like a life lesson and like all of these real stuff going on outside of Big Brother that I'm putting into the game. So I do apologize for that, but that's why it's not believable for me.
All right.
I know. That is my last tangent for the day.
I mean, yeah, I disagree, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I feel like there's more in the edit that isn't serving her as well. But who
I can
knows?
I can believe that. I can believe it.
Uh, um. So Jason, after this segment, he talks to Roddy to see where Roddy stands with Danielle. He alludes to the confrontation. Roddy alludes to the conversation he had with Danielle a couple weeks back and her denial that she's coming after him. And, in the DR, he says there's a lot of people that are opportunists and they pull a Josh where they want other people to do their dirty work for them. And if that's the case, then they're instantly someone I would go and do my best to get out of the house. And I thought that that was an apt description of himself. But
Do you not think
yeah,
it describes her as well?
I think it describes her as well.
Okay,
I just think he's
okay,
also
okay.
kind of describing himself to a T.
I was just curious about your optimism and how far it was with Danielle. So I'm
No,
just double checking
it's
here.
It's not that. No, she definitely is just as manipulative
Okay.
as Roddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel there's still a human in there. Whereas with Roddy, I'm more how you feel about Danielle, where I'm like, I don't know about this
Oh.
guy.
Oh
I,
wow.
yeah, he to me he comes
Mm,
off more like, oh, this would be a dangerous guy in the real world because like I don't know that I really would trust him
yeah.
in the real world. Whereas with Danielle, like no, I think any traits of who you are in the real world kind of come into this game here. But I
Hmm.
do feel like with Danielle, it's like uh, that she's mostly a genuine person here. But yeah, with Roddy, it is similar to how you feel about Danielle, where I'm very skeptical about how he is in real life. So
So you know what? Maybe this is, and then this is also slightly off topic. Maybe this is my
that's fine.
problem
Okay.
because with Roddy, I see you.
Hmm.
I can see that you are this devil. I can see your charm. I can guard myself. I can protect myself, and I know how to respond to it, which is
Hmm.
probably why his doesn't bother me as much. Versus Danielle, I don't know where to put her.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, which means that you could come to me from any angle, and at this time, if I'm the one to go, I would have never seen it coming.
Right.
And so I think that is probably my biggest frustration or upset with her. That's my
Yeah.
biggest thing. I don't know. I don't know where to place her. I don't know what's real. I can't see what's real.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely getting two sides of Roddy, whereas with Danielle, it's more of that game bot, and
Mm,
everything that we get from her is about the game. We don't get a lot of these like human moments, like you said earlier, from her. So
yeah.
it's kind of a one note kind of thing, which is interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think in kind of contrast with Roddy that you're on the mark there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Look at us
so
agreeing on this one episode. Way to go.
yeah. So so Gerry is ready to give up, and Danielle
Yeah.
talks him into going to talk to Jason, and Gerry tells Jason that he would have vetoed Amy had he won, and that he admits that move probably would have sent him out of the house. And then he basically tells Jason to do the exact same thing. And so I think that that was kind of not the way to go about doing that, not the way to go about making that pitch. But he tells Jason that he wants to make it to Final Four and he wants Jason to be there. So he's at least telling Jason that he's got him in the long run. Whether or not that's the truth is another story. So what did you think about this pitch?
I think it was a great pitch. You
Okay.
had me up. You said to me at the POV meeting that I was a house thought I was a threat. Take Amy off, put Roddy up. He's also a threat. How he went about it, I agree with you. I don't think that was, and again, that could have also been editing, but I don't. I how he went about it, and from what we saw, I don't think that was the smartest move. Not if you actually wanted to accomplish that goal. If you were just talking just for the sake of talking, then fine. It was, half-ass conversation. But I think it was a good play. Like I think that would have been a good play had he thought about it or flushed it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I like I yeah. If it was fleshed out more and he took a better approach rather than because I think it comes off as like I just don't think it's a great move to be like to the HOH like, hey, I was gonna do this thing that would have made it harder for you this
Mm-hmm.
week, and then ask him to do the same thing. I think if he had left that part out of it, that it would have been a bit of a smoother kind of
Mm.
situation. Because I
Ask.
feel like if you're saying that you would have done that, and you're saying you would have made like the HOH's week harder, then there's not a lot of credence
Mm.
about whether or not you would have his back going on down the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Um,
Point.
so
Good point.
unfortunately for Gerry, Jason doesn't use it. And of course, we get some disappointment from Gerry in the diary room. We get Danielle, who is also not happy that the devil is not on the block. And, you know, Marcellus kind of, I think, calls it pretty accurately here, where he's like, this next week is going to be the one where there's going to be an important battle. We've been leading up to it all these weeks. It's a
Mm.
sort of Clash of Titans, a battle
Mm-hmm.
royale in this weird way between Roddy and Danielle. They're both coming after each other, and we'll have to see who wins out there. And Lisa is kind of echoing the similar sentiment there. And so they're already kind of looking toward next week. And so it kind of seems like a foregone conclusion what is going to happen here now that we have our nominations locked. Um,
I would like to say this. I was getting
mhm,
excited temporarily based off the conversation with Gerry. I was
yeah.
getting excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like this could be the first time we see somebody actually be backdoored. And so I was getting very excited about it. And obviously I was let down. But I was just like, wow, like to have seen that, I think would have been just groundbreaking because there's nothing that Roddy could have done about it. You know what I mean? And so, which is the purpose. And so I was just excited, obviously for no reason.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jason fell into Roddy's trap, and so we do not get to see that this week. So we open episode 23, our eviction episode, with a nice little quote from Gerry, who quotes Winston Churchill and says, "You can afford to lose every battle but the last one." And he says, it is a little difficult for me being 20 years older than anyone else in this house. There's clearly a generation gap, and so he's feeling like it's kind of a foregone conclusion here. We get Marcellus saying that they should have voted out the ugliest people first
Yes.
so that Gerry would have been gone in
Uh,
week one.
I was like, that was so mean. And I'm sure the way they clipped that was just harsh. That was just harsh for the sake of being harsh. But that was so mean to say. That was so mean to say.
Yeah, right. They're it's funny because a lot of times in Big Brother, like if there is someone that's going out the door, typically what production will do is like bury them in the edit, and
Mm.
usually it's someone that's like in power, that's a terrible person, and then they'll show all the ways that they're terrible. And in this case, it's just like it's Gerry, and he's a nice guy, and people are
Mhm.
just like, you know, calling him ugly and a
Ugly.
bastard and all of that.
Yes.
And it's
It's
like,
just rude.
can't we leave
Rude.
this guy alone? Leave
Like just a
Gerry
little.
alone.
Just for a little bit. He's already on the block.
Yeah. So, but Gerry says, I'm campaigning. I'm trying to remain a positive person. And Gerry talks to Roddy, and Roddy says, "Well, I could talk to Lisa into voting for you to stay, probably, but problem is that if I do that, then you wouldn't be able to put her up the following week." And so that is technically accurate.
Mm.
It is kind of like, all right, if I make an agreement with you to keep me safe, then I got to keep you safe the next week. Roddy tells Gerry, though, that, people forgive and forget things. And, all of the alliances are basically done. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's a clean slate. And
You don't sound like you believe this.
I don't really believe that. No,
Uh,
I like, no, these people haven't shut up about Gerry using the veto in week one
mhm.
all summer. Like, they haven't forgiven him, and
No.
they're not
Mm.
forgetting. A lot of times we talk about like wanting these mega alliances to break up, and for there to be more movement. And I feel like when that happens, you just get like smaller configurations of the same thing. Like I get that there are people like Roddy that are kind of on an island there's people like Gerry that are kind of on an island there, but it's still especially in Roddy's case, it still feels like he has just as much power as when there was a six-person alliance still in the
Mm.
house. So,
But honestly, that's not a bad thing from his perspective.
right.
And even as an outside viewer looking at it, because realistically, he's right, and I'm glad that he brought it up. All of the alliances are pretty much blown up. All the women alliance, the all guy alliance, the most of the couples is one thing that he brought up as well. And I was just like, oh crap! Like realistically, all of these people are done for, with the exception of Amy and Marcellus. Those two are now back together. And so I definitely agree with Roddy on that piece. But to be able to still survive, to be able to still have influence after all these alliances have kind of dispersed, it's it says something. He's
Right.
the blue eyed devil is doing something. Doing
Right.
something.
And it's a great way for him to kind of be like, see, I don't have that much power. Like
Hmm.
everything that I've been in has gotten blown up, so
But
I
I'm
don't
still
have that
here.
much. Like I'm lucky I'm still here, but I clearly don't have any influence.
Yeah.
Well, he's
Yeah.
definitely still exerting it. So,
Yeah.
it's a smart move by him. I
I'm not buying it.
just don't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the thing with Gerry is he's saying, like, as much as I like the guy, I don't trust him either. So,
Hmm.
but Roddy is very insistent that he's heard. that people are coming after him, and they think that I'm doing so well in the game. And this is followed up with a DR from Marcellus, where he basically confirms this and says perception is reality. And so, like, if people think that you are the mastermind of the game, then that gives you a lot of power to
Mm-hmm.
exert all of this influence, because like people are literally just letting you do it. They're giving you that power. So we get another DR from Amy where she says that she feels very confident that she is safe,
Mm-hmm.
and she thinks that if Danielle, Lisa, or Marcellus wins HOH, that they are not looking at coming after her. And um, yeah, I mean, honestly, like you said, she probably is safe for the long run here, because
Yeah.
at this point, who's voting for her to win? So why do you need to get her out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we get Marcellus saying again that Danielle and Roddy are in a battle of wills. Danielle says in the DR, I don't hate Roddy, I don't hate the guy, but he is a threat to me in this game. And so she ends up telling Lisa, I believe, to vote for Amy, while Danielle and Marcellus are going to vote for Gerry. And their intention is to make it a tie so that Roddy thinks Jason is doing his bidding. I was a little
Oh
bit.
wow! I missed that.
Okay, because I was a little
Oh
confused about that plan and how making it a tie would make Roddy think that he had any power, but
oh.
uh, apparently they think that would have worked. So,
Mm, mm.
and I do not have any more context for that,
Okay.
unfortunately. Oops. Um. So
Wow.
yeah. So then we get a DR from Lisa where she says Roddy is everyone's biggest threat, and she knows that a lot of people are buckling under him and gonna try to ride him to the end. And then we get Danielle in the diary room just kind of reiterating how she feels about the game. She's like, I'm constantly thinking about it. I am keeping it internal. I hold my cards close, and I'll show them when I
Mm.
have to show them. And that is when we get a DR from Gerry where he's like, Danielle's been more adept at just playing everyone evenly.
That
And
which is true.
yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what we were saying before about just the different ways that Roddy and Danielle kind of present themselves to everyone, and you know, again, how like our audience perception is different based on the two ways that they're playing the game, even though they're similar characters.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a conversation between Jason and Danielle in the hot tub, and this is we alluded to this earlier. He tells her that he never feels manipulated by her, but he
Yes.
does feel manipulated by other people, and
Which I don't see
yeah,
how.
yeah,
Like he is blinded, and I don't know why. I
right.
don't know why. And I get it. You guys have this secret bond, and nobody really knows about how close you really are, and you only have these conversations in certain times. And but I don't understand why he just. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. I wish I could see it.
I I I think something that plays into it. I think is the fact that Danielle is older.
Mhm.
He's like a young 20 something. She's, I think, 30 or like late 20s, but I think she's about 30 or so. She's a mother. I think that a lot of times there's these mothers where there's this perception of them of like, oh, they're the matriarch of the house.
Mm.
It's kind of what Gerry was trying to do in the beginning of the game, but
Hmm.
like Danielle's better at it, or at least exudes
Yeah. Yeah.
more of that type of thing. And I do think young black women that are mothers also kind of get that kind of role placed on them a little
Hmm.
bit, that
Hmm.
I think that is kind of how Jason is taking her, and
Mm.
to be fair too, I think that this idea of this secret alliance, this idea of we're two people that are going to work together and we are only going to, like, we're going to share everything with each other. We're going to be the one person in this game for the other, that we know that we can trust, that there's this idea that of course she would never try to
Yeah.
manipulate me in any way. So I think there's a few things that are kind of at play there.
Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay. Mm.
Yeah, so then we get a little bit from Marcellus and Amy. There's nothing too interesting there. And then we go to the studio with Miss Julie Chen, and she talks to the house guests, where she starts off by talking to Roddy and says, "How surprised are you not to be nominated this week?" And he says, "I feel." Oh, no, go ahead.
Before that, she mentioned how the mood in the house was
Oh, right.
drastically different than what it was with
Yep.
Chiara.
Yep.
When Chiara got what was on the block and got evicted, like it was drastically different. So I'm really glad that we as viewers, like I'm not crazy,
Yep.
like like that was like some really deep, heavy, sad, silly stuff, and now you guys are this whole happy-go-lucky family again.
Yeah.
So I'm glad she did point that out. But anyway, so sorry about
No,
that.
no, you're good. And I mean, you're right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that Julie is the, like, audience surrogate, right?
Mm,
Where she and she's kind of directing the conversation in a way where it's like, hey, this is how people are kind
I
of
see.
kind of viewing this
I
at
never looked at
home.
it like that. I never looked at it like that. Wow. Okay. The audience surrogate. I like that actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had not
Hmm.
never really thought of it that way either, but I know we've talked about some of the questions that she asks, like, especially when Marcellus and Amy had that fight, and
Mm-hmm.
she kind of questions them on it, and you kind of can sense like they realize what exactly the big thing for the week was for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is is something that she kind of plays a role in doing there, which is interesting because I,
Yeah.
I I never thought about it that way, but considering the fact that these people are just with each other all day and cut
Mm-hmm.
off from the world, and then once a week they get to
You
talk
see
to
too.
Julie,
Mm-hmm.
that is technically a role that she is playing in this game.
Point. Good point.
It
Nice.
now, if it has any real effect on the house guests, that's one thing. I don't think it ever goes too deep, but
Yeah, I would think it would, especially with the responses that we get from them. Because even when she brought up that with the fight, it was just like, oh, that was over, just as quickly as it happened. So you normally get those quick responses from them that are normally sounds a little political. And so yeah, I doubt if it does ever hit them, too deep. So because even was it Roddy and Eric that had a big blowout?
oh, not Roddy and no, Roddy and Josh.
Okay, in the
Yeah,
backyard. I was
Yeah,
like, I knew Roddy and someone had the big blowout, and I was like, they also had to. She addressed that on screen as well, and
yep,
same thing with their responses. So yeah, I guess you're probably right. I'm sure it doesn't affect them heavily. After she's gone and you get back to playing the game. So I doubt it.
right. Um, yeah. So Roddy, he says that he's surprised. He feels like he's been paroled. He's happy to not be on the block, but of course, it's sad because we get to love these people, and it's a shame that someone's gotta go. And then she asks, "Who do you all miss the most?" And Roddy says, "Chiara." Lisa, of course, says Eric, and then she asks, does anybody miss Josh? And people
Mm-hmm.
are like, oh yeah, oh yeah. And then she follows that up by, who do you all miss the least? And everybody says, of
Josh.
course, Josh. Yeah. Um.
I mean, cause come
So
on.
right, right. It's like you love him, but it's a little quieter without him around. Even though I don't know how much quieter with Amy in there, but
Oh, but
I'll stop.
she's probably more so hanging out with Marcellus,
Yeah,
and so they're yeah minus the alcohol bit.
right, right. So we get some information for the house guests that at least affects their sleeping arrangements. Julie
Hmm.
mentions that due to the fact that they're down to like 7, 8 players, that the high rent district bedroom, the map room, is closing, and so there's some discussion about who's going to be taking the cot, and it sounds like it's Danielle. She seems willing and eager.
Who said her name first?
I think it was Danielle. I think Danielle was like, "I'll do
Okay,
it,"
okay,
and
okay,
then
because okay,
there was some clarification that there had been some conversation about it, and that Danielle seemed like the most likely person to
to
be
do it. Gotcha.
caught.
Winston and I were having a conversation about it, and he said he thought that Roddy said it, and I was just like, no, Roddy would not say that. And I was just like, I thought I heard Marcellus say, that Danielle was going to be the one. So I was just curious to see what you heard.
Yeah, that's at least what I think.
Okay, okay.
Uh, I think happened. We come back from commercial to a Jason hometown interview. Was there anything there for you, and anything that interested you?
Um, no, no,
Okay.
no. Oh, Kiara. It was Kiara.
Oh,
Yeah, like
oh,
his
how his
mother.
mom like
Yes,
reacted.
his mom is not happy about Kiara, and I
Yeah,
think, yeah. So, so everything else was just irrelevant, but that had me cracking up, and I was just like, I'm glad it's funny, but I'm glad.
yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah, yeah. Um, so then we get an interview with Jason that's a little bit more detailed, a little bit
Hmm.
more exciting. So Julie asks him, she's like, you've been pretty clear that Danielle is your key ally in this game, and yet, as much as she wanted you to nominate Roddy, you chose not to. Why?
Hmm. Hmm.
And he says, it was a tough week. It ultimately came down to, I have to trust that Roddy's going to be an ally for me. And, I gave my word to Roddy and Chiara last week before the eviction. I really wanted to play this game with honor, so it was tough. And I don't know if I made the right decision. I may have given Roddy the game, but I just had to do what I felt I needed to do. And
Hmm.
so that is kind of in line with his character and how he's been presenting everything,
Yeah.
this decision this week. So,
Hmm.
um,
But he did say no regrets, and
mhm.
this is probably one of those again because is this when she asked him? Like when was
So,
he? Go ahead.
well, so before that, she asks him, "What do you mean? when you say that Roddy has looked out for you time
Yeah,
and
that's what
time
I thought. That's what I thought.
again.
And so I
And
was gonna go ahead.
oh, so I was just gonna say, so he says, when Gerry was head of household, he wanted to put me on the block. Roddy tells me that he went to bat for me and saved me. The week Roddy was head of household, he didn't put me up for a nomination. Even the week that Chiara was HOH, I heard a rumor that I was going up, and Roddy stood up for me. So I just really feel like I owed it to him, and I consider him a real and true friend.
So I was going to say this is one of those head of household meetings with Julie that I felt served its purpose, a little bit better than the others because I had no idea, like, what the hell are you talking about? He saved you. Like, when the hell was this? Like, really? And so again, back to Julie being this audience surrogate and asking the same questions. Like, what the hell do you mean? Like, when? Yeah, when was this? Come back again. And so I'm really glad she asked that question. I'm glad that he answered, and this is probably the first one that I can say that I really enjoyed this conversation, this quote unquote hidden conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it helps too that he's a good speaker, so he gave us quite a bit.
Mm, mm,
He that first question,
mm.
I was like typing it out, and I'm like, oh my god, he's still
They still
going.
go.
He's not letting her get a word in edgewise. But that, like I said, it gave us some interesting information here. So yeah, so he, like you said, he doesn't have any regrets. He thinks it was a safe move. He stayed loyal to his friend, and yeah, so he doesn't have any regrets there. And there's not too much else that we get there. He enjoyed the
No,
perks of being HOH and the food that they got for the week. So we leave the interview there, and when we get back, we get a interview with Eric, who
mm-hmm.
had been evicted a few weeks prior. It was cool, I guess, to see someone like that had been in the game and get an update. That I guess this early in the season, but I didn't feel like it was super entertaining or anything like that. I guess it was cool to see some action shots, but there wasn't too much going on there.
Is that because he was a firefighter? That
Yeah,
was that the action? Okay, got it.
there was some running. You,
Mm,
you didn't
hmm.
see any fires, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I was just like, okay. I was not. It was an unnecessary segment. It was
All right then.
sorry, Eric. Sorry.
Yeah, right. It was fun to see him be a little bit hurt that Lisa didn't
Hmm.
vote him back into the house.
And even his coworkers would say like even if she did, like it wouldn't have
It
mattered.
wouldn't have mattered. Yeah,
And so I'm like, it was great to, it was okay to see it, but I was thinking the same thing, like it wouldn't have mattered. So
yeah. That's the only thing that I was looking to get from this interview. So I'm glad that we got it a little bit. So yeah, we get Julie kind of after that going back to the house, talking to the nominees. None of them say anything interesting
no.
there, and then we get the eviction vote, but we get like I think this might be our first Julie fake out. She says by a vote of 4-0, Amy, you can unpack your bags. Gerry, you are
Yes,
evicted. And
that was. Whew, I was not okay with that. I was
no,
not okay
don't
with
like
that.
fake.
Like, yeah, I did not like that. I felt it. That was kind of cruel to me. That was that. Yeah, I was not okay. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think if I'm a player, I'm gonna hate that. I think as a TV viewer, I still really like it. This was a less exciting vote to do that one on. I think she only did it
Mm,
because there was that comment from Amy
yeah,
about,
um,
I didn't even unpack my bags. So,
yeah. And her third time on the block. I will say that this was Gerry's first time on the block.
Yep,
And so this is very interesting. Your first time on the block and you go home.
yep.
So I was like, okay, like, all right, team.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think this is even more of an indication that, people don't forgive and forget. They were just waiting for a time that it would be useful to get that piece off of the board.
mm,
That's the only reason they were keeping him in, just so that they could use him when they finally needed to
to,
get rid
yeah,
of him. Have an easy week. So
yeah. Hmm.
so Gerry leaves the house evicted 4-0, and Julie asks him, "Were you surprised?" And he says, "No, not terribly." And then, of course, he has to hit us with some Shakespeare.
Yes. Hmm.
And he says you can't walk into that house without expecting to walk out. And of course, makes the comment about being 20 years older and
Hmm.
just not being able to relate to people. Julie asks him about that age gap, and he says, sometimes it's easy to have a commonality with people. Other times, the age gap kind of rears its head, and he says, yeah, my life experiences have just been different. Um, she asks him if he was ready, and he was like, yeah, I was ready. I was, I'm actually kind of lucky because I get to go back to my job that I really, really love. And so that's been weighing on my mind a little bit. And then she asks him, what did you think of Jason when he nominated you and Amy? And he says, I was a little surprised because he had told me he was going to do something else. He told me he was
Hmm.
going after Roddy. Strategically, he had to do what was best for him. Nothing ever surprises me. It couldn't. It's playing the game. If you perceive me as a threat, I was a threat. That was in his best interest.
I'm like, who is perceiving you as a threat?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
realistically. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. He won 2 vetoes, head of household. Like, relax, dude. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
he,
Hmm.
he he's not controlling anything,
He was
and
not. Yeah.
so Julie asks him, do you think that Jason's gonna regret trusting Roddy? And he says, yeah, he might.
Hmm.
Roddy's a player. Roddy's a strong, strong player, and he's gonna do whatever is best for him. And if that means that Jason's got to go, then Jason has got to go. And we end that interview with Julie asking him who it is that he's rooting for to win. And
Hmm.
he, I'm sure, says something that surprises you, in that he is
Did.
for Danielle to win the
Yeah,
game.
and I do see that he obviously recognizes how she's playing the game and how strategic she's moving. And again, I can even give her props for that. I just knew he was about to say Jason. I knew he was going to say Jason, that he was rooting for Jason. So that was a surprise to me to hear Danielle saying, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too surprising for me that he didn't say the guy that just evicted him, when he knows that when he knows that Roddy is the
Running it.
bigger threat in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I guess I was surprised he didn't say Roddy, and that he's the first one to really kind of clock Danielle
Hmm.
as being like this big strategic threat. I mean, I guess Marcellus has kind of said
Yeah.
it a little bit too, but I feel like that's more like, oh, Danielle's manipulative,
So
rather than
Jerry, he said it a few weeks ago, actually,
okay,
and the only reason I remember because he brought up that she has her own thing with each person,
right,
and he mentioned her being ghetto with Marcellus, and I
right,
remember
yep,
not liking it,
yep,
and so he definitely called her out a few weeks ago for being strategic and having her thing with everybody. So, and I guess it never registered to me that maybe he did admire her more so than what I thought. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think they definitely. I think Gerry came into the game seeing it as a game, and I think he recognizes that Danielle does the same thing. Because I mean, he frequently talked about how the people in the game are pawns, and having to move things on the chessboard and
Oh
all of that.
yeah.
So we say goodbye to Gerry until the finale, and this leads us into the HOH competition, where Julie is going to ask a series of true or false questions that the evicted house guests have answered about their fellow house guests. You're supposed to raise the red paddle if the answer is true, hold up the black paddle if the answer is false. So, again, they are kind of staying on track here with the trivia competition HOHs here. Again, very, very easy and simple way of kind of just doing this and kind of blasting through this pretty quickly here. So, was there any of the questions here that
Oh
interested
no,
you, or you
no.
cared more about the
I
result?
yeah. Well, I was honestly, I was um, I was shocked when it was down to Marcellus, Roddy, and Amy.
Right.
When it got down to those three, I was like, oh, okay. Because just to imagine any of them winning head of
Winning.
household,
Yep.
it just I was just like, okay, like that is what drew my eyes in, not the questions, because it's just yeah. What about you?
Uh, yeah, they're yeah, the questions in general were not anything um, particularly interesting, but I do take your point that yeah, the result we end up with is of course that Marcellus wins, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think that lends itself to an interesting week here. I think the same would be for Amy, even though I think with Chiara out of the picture, she's more likely to just do whatever it is that Marcellus
Mm-hmm.
wants. But if Roddy won, I mean that would be something that I think could definitely turn the tide in the game. So I think with either a Marcellus or Roddy HOH that we would be in for an interesting thing here, and I think that given the fact we're 7 weeks in and like there's still the opportunity for something interesting to really happen here. I
Mm-hmm.
think that kind of speaks to these equitable comps and the fact that we are getting a very wide array of HOHs here. It allows the game to move at a more fluid kind of pace. So,
Yeah. But this is his second win.
yep.
Oh my gosh. I will say off the bat, I have no idea what the hell he is going to do. And I know what I would like. If we go off of what he kind of brought up, with this whole battle between Roddy and Danielle, if he sticks to that, I mean, oh my goodness, that'll be another episode where I have to pause and write, pause and write. But yeah, I can't imagine what he's gonna do. Can't imagine.
Yeah, me either.
Really, really. Okay, I'm calling bull on that one.
I
I
know
feel like
exact.
I already know. Oh my goodness, this
I
is
I
just.
I do know what he's going to do. So, but I think we're gonna have a fun week here coming up. So, final thoughts on week 7 of Big Brother 3.
Not a lot. This week, I think, like you said about Jason and his head of household, it was just easy choices. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It was an easy week, and so I feel like this week just it flew by, and not to say everything was predictable, but it was just safe. Everything about this week was extremely safe. And so I'm very, very much so more interested in next week than this
Yeah,
one at this point. At this
yeah,
point, had Jason chosen other people, that'd have been a different story. But that's not what happened. So yeah.
yeah. I agree with you. I think that it is. I don't love that he played it safe here. I think it's too
Hmm.
late in the game to be doing that. Um, but I still feel like the strength of this season is the varying relationships and just people really reacting to those relationships. And it's not always about the strategy. It's about how people make you feel in the game. And so I think that is something that is really interesting that we are continuing to see here. And yeah, I am looking forward to seeing what the next week has in store for us, because I think it's going to be a good one. So
Hmm.
that that is what we have for you this week. Let us go ahead and plug all of the things that we want to plug. So, would you like to go first?
Not a problem. If you would
Okay.
like to be inspired by me on a daily basis, follow me at Inspired by Jimmy L on all social media platforms, or just come see me at inspiredbyjimmyl.com.
All right. And I can be found, just talking about reality TV on Blue Sky at noamassay.bsky.social. And yeah, you can also find us, the Jury House podcast, on Blue Sky at thejuryhouse.bsky.social, and on Instagram at the Jury House podcast, as well as Twitter for now at house_/jury. And so that is all that we have for you this week. And please join us again next time as we invite another Big Brother 3 house guest into the jury house. See you guys.
See ya.